the forgotten rebellion that nearly changed India forever. The untold story of the 1857 Siege of Cawnpore. It began with a whisper in the heat-stricken barracks of colonial India, a rumor, then a spark, then a mutiny that spread like wildfire. In 1857, a quiet city on the banks of the Ganges River turned into the epicenter of horror, courage, betrayal, and perhaps the greatest forgotten uprising in Indian history. This is the untold story of the Siege of Cawnpore and the day colonial rule nearly cracked apart. June, the hottest month in India. The skies hang heavy, the land is dry. And in the British cantonment of Cawnpore, tension is thick in the air. The British had ruled India for a century by then, not through armies alone, but by slowly tightening control through the East India Company. It was a system built on trade, taxes, and the illusion of partnership with Indian princely states. But beneath the surface, resentment was simmering. British officers had little respect for Indian soldiers, the Sepoys. Their culture was mocked, their beliefs ignored, their loyalty taken for granted. The final insult? A new rifle? The Enfield. To use it, a soldier had to bite the cartridge open. It was greased, allegedly with cow and pig fat. For Hindu and Muslim soldiers alike, it was an outrage, a violation of faith, a symbol of contempt. That small act of disrespect became the match to a powder keg. In May 1857, the revolt began in Meerut. Indian soldiers shot their officers and fled to Delhi. The city fell. The Mughal emperor, a powerless relic, was suddenly declared the symbolic head of the rebellion. From there, rebellion spread like monsoon floods. Cawnpore, today known as Kanpur, lay directly in its path. It was a garrison town with a modest British civilian population. Women, children, elderly clerks, and a small number of soldiers. And waiting in the wings was a man both admired and feared, Nana Sahib. Nana Sahib was no ordinary rebel. He was the adopted son of the deposed Maratha Peshwa, a title once revered across western India. The British had refused to grant him the pension his father was owed. For years, Nana had smiled at British officials, entertained them lavishly, and written polite letters. All the while, his bitterness grew deeper. When rebellion swept India, Nana struck. But unlike others, he knew the power of perception. He didn't attack blindly, he demanded surrender. On June 6th, Cawnpore's British defenders and their families retreated to a hastily built entrenchment, a dusty, sun-scorched patch of land with no shade, no water, and dwindling supplies. For 3 weeks they held out, under cannon fire, heat stroke, and starvation. Babies died in their mothers' arms. Soldiers wept from dehydration. Disease swept through the tents. And yet, they resisted. On June 25th, Nana Sahib sent a letter. If they surrendered, he would provide safe passage by river to Allahabad. Broken, desperate, and trusting a man who once dined with their generals, the British agreed. The next morning, they were escorted to the banks of the Ganges. Boats waited. Women and children climbed aboard. Soldiers laid down their arms. But as the first oars touched water, something snapped. Accounts differ. Some say a soldier fired a hidden pistol. Others say Nana's men panicked. Or perhaps it was never meant to be peaceful. What followed was slaughter, gunfire, screams, boats ablaze, men bayoneted in the shallows. Some women and children survived. They were taken back, held in a dark building called Bibighar. For 2 weeks they waited, but the tide had turned. British forces were now marching toward Cawnpore, and Nana Sahib faced a decision. What happened next has haunted history. On July 15th, with British troops closing in, an order was given. The women and children, over 200 souls, were massacred. Their bodies mutilated and dumped into a well became a symbol of British rage. The next day, British forces entered Cawnpore. They found the Bibighar, floors stained, walls clawed, blood pooled. Silence. The revenge was swift, brutal, and relentless. What followed was not justice, it was fury. British soldiers executed suspected rebels by tying them to cannons and blowing them apart. Entire villages were burned. No court, no mercy. The cycle of violence that began with mutiny now spiraled into massacre. And yet we rarely hear of Cawnpore. Why? Because neither side came out clean. To the British, it was a humiliation turned horror. To the Indian rebels, it became an uneasy stain on the story of resistance. But the truth is not black and white. It's the dust-covered face of a dying mother in a trench. It's a sepoy who fired not from hate, but desperation. It's a young ruler trying to reclaim dignity and losing himself to vengeance. The Siege of Cawnpore was not just a battle. It was a mirror showing the cruelty of empire and the fury of those denied justice for too long. It showed what happens when dialogue dies and respect is replaced by arrogance. But perhaps most importantly, it reminds us, revolutions are not born from weapons. They are born from silence, from unheard prayers, from years of being seen but never understood. In the end, Nana Sahib vanished. Some say he fled to Nepal. Others believe he died unknown, buried beneath an alias, forgotten by history. His legacy remains twisted. To some, a freedom fighter. To others, a butcher. But in the ashes of Cawnpore, one truth burns brighter than all. When people are pushed to the edge, history is no longer written with ink, but with blood. And those pages are never easily erased.